Hello! Today I am coming at you with the long awaited and overdue video swatching my whole Pretties for Your Face collection. Now, longtime viewers may remember that the last time I did a Pretties for Your Face video over a year ago, I said that I was not planning on purchasing from Pretties for Your Face again. However, just like the clown that I am, a couple months after that video, Pretties for Your Face was doing a sale, and one of my shades had broken, and so I wanted to replace it and pick up a few others that piqued my interest. And so in July of last year, I ordered 5 shadows. And when they came to me, I was shocked at how much I liked them, considering how hit and miss Pretties for Your Face had been for me in the past. So then when they came out with like their summer collection last year, I bought the whole thing and again was really impressed with the quality, especially given the price point of the shadows. Which, if you aren't familiar, Pretties for Your Face typically has their eyeshadows priced at $5. Some are priced at $10, and then some are priced around $18. But they do sales very, very frequently. And during sales, you can typically get eyeshadows for 50% off. And with everything but like the true multi-chromes, you can add an affiliate code on top of that, which makes all of the shadows 70% off, which means most of these shadows were $2 a piece. And that has been the reason that I've come back to Pretties for Your Face over and over again, despite having some mixed results the first couple times that I purchased. But after those 2 purchases that I did last summer, I became kind of obsessed with the brand. And I picked up a bunch of other shades and I was really enjoying them. And so after talking to my friend Cecily behind the scenes, I decided to reach out to the brand owner, Meg, to ask about an affiliate code, and she was very gracious. I said in my initial email, I haven't been a big fan in the past, but recently I've picked up a few orders that have really inspired me. And so I asked about getting an affiliate code, and she was so warm and receptive. She was glad that I had started to find some shades that I enjoyed, and she gave me an affiliate code. That code, if you're curious, is Catherine B. And with that affiliate code, initially when I joined the affiliate program, she had an in-store credit affiliate code. So when people would make purchases over a certain dollar amount, I would get $5 in store credit, which is the equivalent of 2 eyeshadows. And so I picked up some of these through my affiliate like in-store money, but I would say about half of them I probably have bought with my own money, no affiliate code or anything like that. I don't have like a full comprehensive list of like what I bought versus what I used my in-store credit to pick up, but I will, try to be as unbiased as possible. To me, they're all just shadows that I have, and I don't differentiate between like ones that I paid my money for versus ones I used credit for. But in February of this year, you all used my Pretties for Your Face affiliate code so much that I was the top selling affiliate for the month. I know, I was shocked too. And because of that, I got to make a collaboration shade with Pretties for Your Face. They do this every month where the top selling affiliate gets to make a shade with them. I think it's such a cool idea and a great way to get the community involved. And I sent Meg a couple of ideas. She mixed 2 of them up, and we both loved both of them so much that we decided to just put them both out. And so those are in here as well. And at the end of the video, I'll do some comparisons for those shades specifically if you're curious. One thing to note is that Pretties for Your Face has some good dupe shadows for more expensive shadows from other brands. I'm not going to be going through and showing the dupes for every shade in here today because that would take forever. forever, and I just can't do it. But if you guys are interested in that, let me know, and I will do like my top Pretty for Your Face dupes in a separate video if you guys are interested. So with all of those caveats out of the way, let's go ahead and get into swatching, and then after that, I will go ahead, give you guys some general thoughts, my favorite shades that I recommend the most, and like information about like shipping and all that good stuff. So stay tuned till the end so that way you can know everything you've got to know before you make a purchase. But for now, let's go ahead and get into swatches. So I tried my best to organize all of these by color, which means we're starting off with anything white and or iridescent. This first shade is called Snowball Fight, and you can see it's thicker. I would say overall, Pretties for Your Face has a pretty dry formula. I always compare it to Shine by SD if you've ever tried those shadows, but they definitely are more kind of cornstarchy rather than glycerin emollient dimethicone. Snowball Fight is pretty much like a true white. You can see it kind of blends out to be pretty iridescent, but also keep in mind I am super fair, so that may not be true for everyone. This one isn't my favorite. I feel like this is one of the older Pretties for Your Face formulas. There is a nice sparkle to it, but it definitely does take a little bit of time to smooth this one out and get rid of any kind of like chunkier bits. Next up, we have the shade Kitty, and this again is kind of a flaky, white, sparkly shade. This was made in collaboration with Regina's Makeup Stash, who I absolutely love on Instagram. She has some of the best and most informative content I highly recommend. And I've said before, this shade is not my favorite. I find it's very textured on the skin, and it's just kind of hard to work with. Again, this is an older shade, and I feel like Pretties for Your Face's formula has evolved a lot over time. In truth, I don't see a ton of difference between Snowball Fight and Kitty, so I would say if you did have a deep desire to have like a white shimmer shade, you would want to pick between these because they're pretty similar, with the main difference being that Kitty has more of a larger particle size. Now we've got Red Light, Green Light, and this is one that was from the Squid Games collection. This one is a white kind of base, and again you can see not super opaque but definitely there, but it also has a red and green kind of micro sparkle within it. I think this one out of these three so far is my favorite. I just find that it's more even and has a little bit more dimension with those multicolored sparkles in there. Next we have Valentine Baby, and in full transparency, this is a collaboration with my friend Cecily, and so I am biased towards this one because I really enjoy Cecily as a person, but I do think that this one's really nice. You can see this one's more of like a traditional shimmer formula. It's got a micro sparkle, and this is like the kind of texture that a lot of the Pretties for Your Face shades are in. This one, it has way more of a base than the others that we've swatched so far, and it kind of has like a little bit of a silvery pinky kind of sparkle throughout it. It's really pretty, and I really like using this one as an inner corner highlight on my skin tone. This next shade is a standout for me. Really, these next three are really, honestly, like the rest of this row is just like this newer formula. This first one is called True Love, and this is a formula that, again, you've kind of got to work to smooth out. It feels just a touch gritty, but that is because it's got this very large kind of flaky, sparkly particle within it, and you can see it is a duochrome that goes from a pink to a gold, and it is just beautiful. This is actually one of the shades that kind of created one of my collab shades. I asked her to mix this shade plus another, and it's because I love this sparkle and this formula that she has so much. The next one like this is Glass Coffin, and this is a really pretty shade, but this one is no longer on the website because the creator who collaborated with the brand to make this shade posted some really nasty transphobic stuff on Trans Visibility Day of this year, and I really appreciate Meg's response. As soon as she was notified of that post by the creator, she took the shades off the website, removed the code, and sent out like a message saying that, you know, the brand is not aligned with those views. And I really appreciate how quick she was to respond and shut that shit down, because the beauty space is a space for everyone. And if you aren't about that life, then it probably isn't a space for you, because you've got to be open and inclusive within our space. And I know that might sound paradoxical, but if you're based in bigotry, this really just isn't a space for that. You know, we don't want anything to do with that, and I'm glad that Meg shut that down. I know that there has been conversation about rebranding this shade, bringing it back, and donating the proceeds to a trans nonprofit, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. I haven't really heard anything else about it. This is a really pretty shade. It's again, kind of like an iridescent with a green, blue, pink sparkle in it. And I know Cecily brought up that like the blue and pink actually works really well for trans rights because of the trans flag. So we'll see what happens with this shade. It is one that I enjoy, but definitely don't enjoy who created it or their sentiment. Next up, though, we've got Starry Sky. This one is more along the lines of True Love. It's like a pretty traditional kind of duochrome kind of shade that we would see. So this one goes from a pretty true blue to like a pinky purple. And again, you can just see that texture is so beautiful. There's so much shine, and it really is a special shade. And then last, with the true iridescence, we have the shade Icicle. This one, again, was a component in the other collab shade that I did. I think that this is such a beautiful iridescent. This one's smoother. It feels less textured than True Love or Starry Sky. And I feel like you can kind of see that in the effect on the arm swatch. It just is so smooth and so sparkly. And this one, whereas this is more of a true blue, this is more of a turquoise that then shifts to that pink. I'm not quite sure if I can capture that for you guys. We're getting a little low on my arm, but it does have a similar shift to Starry Sky, I would say. Now this next one is kind of a hybrid because it's not a true iridescent. It's got a little bit of a gray base, but I would say it is pretty similar to these iridescents, especially in the texture of like these back four. And this is the shade Cauldron. This was a part of the Halloween collection last year, and it is really, really pretty. So again, it's got kind of a light, like minty gray base, and then on top it's got this green to pinkish red kind of sparkle, maybe a little bit more purpley, because you'll see in a few that one down the line does have more of a true pink shift, so it's a little different. But the reason I put these four next to each other is because there are some pretty hardcore similarities. This next shade is Spine Tingling, and this one also was released with the Halloween, like fall collection last year. And you can see the sparkle in these two is like completely identical. The difference is that base color. So like I said, Cauldron has kind of like a smoky grayish kind of color. And then Spine Tingling has more of like a true green base. But I would definitely say you do not need both of these. You could pick one or the other and be totally set. Now we've got the shade Festive, and this is the one that I was referring to when I said one had more of a true kind of reddish pink shift. And again, you can see they're very, very similar. I'm hoping you can see that this one, Festive, goes a little bit more pinky, in my opinion at least. But again, you don't need all three. This one has more of like a bluish green base, whereas this one has more of like almost a gray green base. So that's where the main difference is coming in. Again, I would recommend just picking out whatever base color you think you'll use the most if this is a type of shift in sparkle and shade that interests you. Okay, then last up for the first row, we've got our first mega chrome, which are like the true multi-chromes that Pretties for Your Face has. These are the shades that are $18, but they do go on sale for 50% off pretty regularly at this point, which makes them $9, which I think is a great deal for this shade. And you can't use an affiliate code to stack on these, but still $9 for this type of shade is a great price. And you can kind of see it goes from like this green to more of like a silvery, icy lavender kind of shift. But what I will say about the Mega Chromes is what makes them really special, in my opinion, is not the shiftiness of them, but the multicolored sparkle within them. I'm not sure if you can see, but this shade has green, gold, orange, blue, silver sparkles all throughout it. Like, it is just so dimensional, and that's how I find a lot of the Mega Chromes to be. I think they are gorgeous and so unique. And again, in that multicolored sparkle kind of style, it does remind me of Shine by SD, because I feel like Shine by SD has been moving toward multicolored sparkle shades, and they just remind me a lot of each other. And you can see the base color on this one, again, pretty pale green, but it is kind of like a green sheer base. So one last time, here are all of these shades again. And we've got Snowball Fight, Kitty, Red Light, Green Light, Valentine Baby, True Love, Glass Coffin, which is currently discontinued, Starry Sky, Icicle, Cauldron, Spine Tingling, Festive, and Glass Slipper. Moving on to the second row, we have the shade Globetrotter, and this is an older formula, but it definitely is a standout from the kind of original Pretties for Your Face formula. You can see it's got a bright lime green base with a blue kind of fine sheen sparkle throughout it. And then I find that this does shift a little bit kind of like purpley, but I am struggling to capture that right now for you. Next, we have the shade Slimer, and this is one that I got from my original couple orders, and I didn't love it, and I still don't. It is more of a satiny kind of shade. It is a bright green, and honestly, I don't know if I should be swatching this one right now, because I do find that this has some pretty significant staining. It also generally just has like a thicker texture, and I find that it's just a little bit harder to work with. I can make it pretty, and it is nice on like something like the lower lash line, but out of everything I've tried from the brand, it's just not my personal favorite. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have the shade Ether, and this is one of my top recommendations if you are a colorful eyeshadow person. This is so sparkly and beautiful. It's got a pretty similar base, like maybe right in between Slimer and Globetrotter, but it's a little bit sheerer, a little bit true like apple green with this intense golden sparkle throughout it. And it doesn't feel textured. Like, it doesn't feel like some of the shades feel dry and have chunks in them, and you kind of got to work and smooth them out, and they still feel textured. This doesn't feel like that. It just has that really beautiful sparkle throughout it, though. Now we've got Hobgoblin, and this is one that I really wanted to like, but I find that this one has more of that cornstarchy, thick, chunky texture like I was just referring to. I'm not sure if you can see because it's such a light color, but it just is a little chunky. It sits a little, uncomfortably on both like this arm swatch and on my eyes when I've worn it. And I find that as I try to smooth it out, I kind of like end up brushing away a lot of the shimmer. So this one's not my favorite. It's got a pale kind of spring green base to it with a purpley to blue kind of sparkle. But again, it's just not my personal favorite. This is a shade that I've had since my first order, and I really do like this shade. This is And Peggy. It's more of a kind of true metallic kind of finish, and it has a pale mint kind of base color with this really strong gold sheen on top. I find it just gorgeous. and really easy to work with. Great for like an inner corner highlight. This next one is called Pussycat, and it has the same kind of gold sheen, almost exactly the same, but this one is more of a gray, sagey kind of green, maybe even leaning a touch kind of blue jean blue. But I did want to put these two together despite this base color not really working here, just because that sheen is so similar and I wanted you guys to be able to see those to compare. Again though, this is one of those situations where I would say you definitely don't need both if this is like a type of shade that attracts you. This is another one of the mega chromes. This is the shade Storybook, and unfortunately my version of this shade I think just had a batch issue. It is very silicone-y, which is unusual. Like I said before, normally the Pretties for Your Face formula leans pretty dang dry, but this one does not. This has almost kind of a grayish black base with a green to purple shift, and again, just an insane amount of different colored sparkles in here. Just looking at it, I see green, obviously, to purple. Then I see orange, blue, purple, pink, really just kind of the whole rainbow in the sparkles. And I think that this would be a beautiful shade. I just didn't have quite as good of luck with my version of it. Meg did offer to replace this for me, but since I get shades as like an affiliate, I figured I would just use some of my affiliate money down the line and repurchase this one if I want to try it again. Next to this, we have one of my favorite ones of the Mega Chromes. This is the shade Pumpkin Pixie, and it is gorgeous. It's kind of like if Cleona Mural had more of a base color to it. So you can see it's kind of got like an olivey, but something a little bit cooler to it, like a just like a forest kind of green. And then on top, it's got that orange to gold to lime green shift. But then again, it still has that multicolored sparkle throughout. Like I can see pink and blue and green and orange, and it is just stunning. And I really love that it has that more pronounced base color with this shift. Gosh, I just realized I was so excited to swatch Pumpkin Pixie that I totally skipped over Brocade. So let's go ahead and do that shade now. So Brocade is like a black eyeshadow with a beautiful green sparkle on it that shifts to a little bit of like a blue. I don't think I'm going to be able to capture that because the shade is so dark. I just don't think my camera will be able to pick up that shift. This shade is definitely one that is like pretty far outside of my comfort zone, but for all of my grunge folks out there, you might really like this one. One thing to note, this black pigment definitely stains, so be wary if you are not okay with staining. Okay, now getting back into the correct order, we've got another Mega Chrome. This one is the shade Legend, and it's kind of like the more bright version of Pumpkin Pixie. This one has more of, I don't know, like a chartreusey green, like sour green kind of base. And this one goes from, again, that orange to gold to green and has that multicolored sparkle. I would say that the shifts within these are pretty similar. You probably would be okay to just pick one or the other and get a similar effect. And if it were between these two and I could only have one, I would personally pick Pumpkin Pixie. This next one I find really interesting, but it's definitely one of those more prugly shades, so I don't think it would be for everyone. This is the shade Eye of Newt, and it's more of like a satiny kind of shimmer, not super sparkly, more of a true sheen. And you can see the base is like this muted kind of mustard yellow with a green sheen on top. And again, it's just, it falls into the prugly category, but I find it really, really pretty. Last but not least for this row, we have Funnel Cake. And this is a kind of muted beige with, again, that really strong gold shimmer, sheen, kind of reflect on it. You can see what I mean about how it's like a peachy kind of beige base. And it's really pretty, good one and done if you want just an easy, more neutral leaning look. And I find it gorgeous. I'm going to keep this one swatched on the next set so that way you can compare it to the next few shades because they also have this same type of sheen. But for now, let's run through this list of shadows. So first up, we have Globetrotter, Slimer, Ether, top recommendation, Hobgoblin, and Peggy, Pussycat, Storybook, Brocade, Pumpkin Pixie, which again, top recommendation, Legend, Eye of Newt, and Funnel Cake. As promised, I did re-swatch Funnel Cake and move it up to the top to compare to the next few shades. And I also want to point out, like I said, Brocade does stain pretty intensely, even after scrubbing my arm with a makeup eraser. This next shade is called Boo, and it has more of an orangey kind of pale base, but that gold in it is so similar that I wanted to keep these together. But I think you can see maybe that the base is like a little bit more of a very pale peach. And the next shade has even more of an orange base. This is Harvest Moon. And again, we've got that gold sheen on top. This one's a little bit thicker. And then you can see it's got kind of like a golden orange base. So all three of these, pretty similar. Out of the three, I like Funnel Cake the most. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I just switched these two up. This is the shade Peace that I just swatched, and this next one is Harvest Moon. And Harvest Moon does have way more of an orange base to it with that same gold shift. So because I messed that up, let's run through these four really quick. We've got Funnel Cake, Boo, Peace, and then Harvest Moon. Next is Sour Tangerine, and this one is the most orange, but because it still has that kind of golden sheen on it, I wanted to show it to you all. This one's more of a golden green, and you can see it's more of a traditional kind of shimmer formula. I really like that one. Now, hopping back over to some true yellows. First up, we have a cult classic. This is the shade Flare, and it is really beautiful. This one has like what I tend to call like more of a watercolor base. It's opaque, but something about it still kind of feels soft. And then it has this blue to pink sparkle, which I don't think I'm going to be able to capture for you, but it is really pretty. It's more of that fine micro sparkle, more sparkly than a true shimmer like Sour Tangerine. Flare, I really enjoy. Then we've got the shade Castor. This is from that summer collection last year that I told you really blew me away. This one is very similar to Flare in that base color. You can see they're pretty much identical. And then you can see what's different about it is the color of the sparkle. So Flare is a blue to pink and Castor is a pink to gold, but then it also has some blue sparkle in there as well. I would definitely say this is a situation where you don't need both, and out of the two of these, I would recommend Flare. I find that I like the texture of this a little bit more, whereas Castor feels a touch grittier. However, neither of them compare to this next shade, Horizon, which is again one of my absolute favorites. This has a very similar texture to that green shade Ether, and you can see it is just so sparkly. So it's got a golden base with a bright yellow, kind of leaning maybe a touch green on the far edges sparkle, and it is just such an intense PC sparkle, and as a yellow lover, this one especially speaks to my heart. Antares is also from that summer collection last year, and this is another one with like that same kind of very sparkly formula. This one has a kind of cool orange base with a gorgeous gold sparkle. This one is less intense of a gold. It's more of like a neutral gold versus a yellow gold in Horizon. Both are incredibly beautiful and both are on like my top tier favorites. This next shade is another one of my original Pretties for Your Face shades. This is the shade Work. It's from the Hamilton collection that she did along with the shade and Peggy. And this one is again like maybe leaning coral in the base, like a corally orange with that same golden sheen, really pretty compared to something like Antares, nothing special. And I feel like hopefully you can see why I was converted, because I went from getting shades mostly like this to finding a bunch of shades that are in this Antares formula and this formula for $2. I just can't wrap my brain around it. Now we have another one of the Mega Chromes. This is the shade Sensation. This one's interesting though. I find that this is less like the other Mega Chromes because it doesn't have a ton of multicolored sparkles. It really is just kind of a multi-chrome. So it's got a orange base with this pink to kind of gold shift. Out of the Mega Chromes, this one definitely isn't my favorite, but if you prefer a more traditional kind of multi-chrome, you might really like this one. Next up is the shade Ozone. This is an orange that has a little bit of a pink sparkle in it. This one, not my favorite. I find it's just a little dusty looking, and it's one of those ones where as you try to smooth it out, the sparkle kind of like brushes away, and so it's left looking pretty satiny, and it's just not my personal favorite. Lastly, we have the shade Elves, and this one is almost like a red. It has a very strong base color. And again, this one's not my favorite. I find that it keeps its sparkle a little bit more than Ozone, but compared to some of these others, like over in kind of this section of my arm, these just aren't anything to write home about. So again, all together, we have Funnel Cake, Boo, Peace, Harvest Moon, Sour Tangerine, Flare, Castor, Horizon, Antares, Work, Sensation, Ozone, and Elves. I want to point out that that last set had quite a bit of staining as well. I was able to kind of scrub it away, but these bright yellows and then some of these brighter oranges all left some staining. I feel like I'm not the best source of staining information because I typically wear an eye primer and I find that I don't really deal with staining on the eyes a ton. Now we're going to take a break and move into more of the peachy and neutral shades, but first we have another Mega Chrome. This one is Fairy Godmother, and it is an orange to, or like more of like a pink to an orange to a gold shift, and this one has like an orangey kind of grayish base, but it can be sheared out pretty easily. These next few are all ones that I've had since the beginning of my journey with Pretties for Your Face. First up, we have the shade Fra-gee-lay. This is kind of a neutral peach with like a leaning gold kind of sheen, but it's like one of those very champagne-y kind of sheens that isn't too warm or too cool. Then we've got Cham Cham. This one has more of a peachy base with a silver sheen on top. And this one I really, really like, as seen by the pretty large divot in it. And then lastly, for these similar kind of shades, we have Sand Dollar. And this one has more of a golden, almost like green kind of sheen on top with a light cooler pink. None of these shades are really special, and for a long time I wasn't a huge fan, but I have started to really appreciate them as workhorse shades for like an inner corner highlight, and I find that they round out my BYOPs really nicely to just give me something light and bright to accent my inner corner and brow bone with. This next shade is Tesseract, and this is one of those older shades that has like a very chunky, gritty kind of texture that I don't really love. It does have a nice sparkle factor to it, but you've really got to work it in, and to me, it's just kind of not worth its effort, especially when there are shades that I find easier to work with that give a similar effect that we'll cover as we continue swatching this row. This shade is one of the more kind of regular shimmers, but it is one of my favorites from Pretties for Your Face. This is the shade Cobweb, and I think it's beautiful. It's got more of a deeper peachy base when compared to these 3 lighter ones that we swatched earlier, with that same kind of golden sheen. But this one, again, kind of similar to Sand Dollar, has more of like a goldeny green, but still is neutral. And I just love this shade as a one and done on my skin tone. Then next to that, we have Titan, and both Titan and Cobweb were in my purchase of like the 5 shades that really blew me away. And I hope that you can see why. Titan is one of those ones like Ether and Horizon that just has a gorgeous sparkle to it. It's not super textured to apply. It kind of lays down pretty smoothly and smooths out easily, but it just has an insane amount of sparkle. It looks like you're wearing a glitter, but there's no glitter in this. It's amazing. Similarly, this next shade, Thankful, is another one in this type of formula. This one's a little bit grittier, but smooths out, and it has more of a warm coppery base with a gold and silver sparkle throughout. Again, just so beautiful. And for $2, game over. This next shade is Jolt, and this is one that I really want to love. Like, it is very sparkly and beautiful, but this one feels really textured on my eyes, and so I don't find that I wear it as much as I would if it didn't have that texture, but the sparkle within it is really, really pretty. And this one has more of like almost like a rusty, getting reddish kind of base, and this one has a ton of different sparkle colors in it. I see like a blue, silver, gold. It's just very multidimensional, but a little rough on the eyes. This next shade, Broomstick, is another one from that amazing Halloween collection that she did last year. This one is a deep, kind of again, reddish brown with a beautiful sheen on top. This one isn't like quite as sparkly, but it looks like one of those like wet rock kind of shades. And you can see it does kind of have a little bit of a shift from like a pink to more of a taupe. And it just is really, really pretty. I really like this shade a lot. Then next up, we have what might be my favorite Pretties for Your Face shade outside of my 2 shades that I helped make. This is the shade Baby Doll. This was one that I got in that original set of 5 that I was like, holy crap, I am falling in love with the formula. This is a combination of 2 other shades. I believe it's Titan and Asteroid mixed together. So it's got a nice kind of mid-tone beigey brown base with just an insane amount of sparkle. I see purple, blue, gold, silver. It is so dimensional, so beautiful. This is like what the Urban Decay eyeshadows wish that they could be, and instead of $24, it's $2. Then last for this row, we have the shade Sunlit. This is more of a pearly, sheeny kind of color, and this plus Icicle are the combination that I used to help create the shade Roma. This, again, has a very similar base color to Baby Doll, and then you can see has that silvery kind of sheen on top. Again, really great one and done shade. So running through that full list again, we have Fairy Godmother, Fra-gee-lay, Cham Cham, Sand Dollar, Tesseract, Cobweb, Titan, Thankful, Jolt, Broomstick, Baby Doll, and Sunlit. Starting off the next row, we have the first of my 2 collab shades. This is the shade Roma, and I said I'm gonna do like some comparisons and some more in-depthness at the end with my 2 collab shades. So I want to keep it brief for this portion of the video. Roma, again, has that kind of same like peachy, beigey, mid-tone base with a blue to pink sparkle on top. This one is a much finer sparkle texture than some of my other favorites like Baby Doll that I've pointed out, but I do feel like it really does capture that sparkle and not just a sheen. It looks so beautiful. I love it so much. I'm so happy with it. This next one is the one that inspired me to go back and repurchase some shades and make that first order of 5. This is the shade Asteroid, and when my original one broke, I missed it so much that I wanted to repurchase it. It's got a little bit more of a red base with a kind of like purpley pink silvery sparkle on top, and I would say texture-wise, like Roma is a little bit more sparkly looking, but they are pretty similar. So if you have Asteroid, that might be a good kind of comparison for the sparkle type in Roma. Next is Toil, and this is one that I picked up in one of my first orders that I made my last Pretties for Your Face video about, and I said it was just kind of meh to me. I have since started to like the shade more because I like it for its layering capacity. Like this plus something like Icicle on top of it is just really magical and sparkly. And so I've started to appreciate it more for that. But this definitely is a little bit more satiny and less like sparkly than these first two. And you can see the base on this one is deeper than either of these two. And it has kind of like a bluish, grungy, silvery kind of sheen on top. Next, we have Calicore, and this one has a similar texture to me to Tesseract, which means it's not my favorite. I find it feels a little gritty. This one can be smoothed out a little bit easier, but to me, it's just kind of not worth all of the effort to get it to that place. I do like it, but it's not a top favorite for me. Although here on my arm, I'm like, maybe it is because it looks super pretty. And every time I wear it on my eyes, I like it. It just is one of those ones that feels a touch gritty. Then we've got the shade Honeycomb, and this is another one from that Squid Games collection. It has a super cute embossing on it that I'm like starting to rub off, but it's like the little, if you've seen the show, it's like the little umbrella from that episode. And I think it's really cute that she does those. I've got a couple others that had imprints on them, but this one, great inner corner highlight color, especially if you're a little bit deeper than me, because the base on this is a little bit deeper, but with a soft hand, I can get it to be more sheer and kind of lose that base, but keep that silvery champagne kind of shine on it. I think this one's really pretty. This one and some of these others are technically listed as highlighters, but you can buy them in the eyeshadow size pans and you can get them at the eyeshadow price. This next one is another one of my OG faves that I repurchased. This is the shade Zabornak, and this is a very beautiful, cool toned, taupey, minky kind of color. Again, that same kind of like traditional, sheeny, very like fine, sparkly finish from Pretties for Your Face, but in just the most flattering cool tone neutral. This next one is my friend Jen. One of her favorites from Pretties for Your Face. This is the shade EA, and it is one of the most unique silvers I've ever seen. So it's got like a pretty slate gray base, and then you can hopefully see that pink to almost gold sparkle on top and shift. It is really interesting. It is just like the most interesting set of colors I've ever seen together. And I do like this as a one and done look, but it is a little deep for me. Speaking of deep grays, we have the shade Noelle, and this is a pretty true silver, but again, it's just a little bit deeper. And this one I do find is one that you've kind of got to work to smooth out. Next is another one of these more like wet rock kind of shades. This is the shade Nightingale, and it's one of those like classic red-green duochromes. This one, again, you can see has a deeper reddish-brown base with that greeny gold sheen on top. Here we have another collab shade with Regina's Makeup Stash. This is the shade Gina, and this is inspired by Teresa Glena's cat, Gina. And Teresa, also a friend on Instagram. I'll be sure to link all of these people down in the description box, so feel free to go and check out their Instagram pages. They all are fabulous. This is another one that I got in that last order I did with the video from last year, and I thought this one was like pretty but nothing special. I do really like the color combo in this one. I find that it's a little bit more like plummy than a lot of other shades like it. And I really do like this kind of one and done finish. And you can see it definitely is more shifty than Toil. And I definitely like it more than this one. But in my head, they kind of do a similar feature where I can like top them with more sparkly shades. Now we have another one that I would say is a cult classic. Shout out to Hot Vegan Hannah for putting this on everyone's radar. This is the shade Moby, and this one is really interesting. It's like kind of a satin base, but then it has this really delicate blue sparkle throughout. This shade reminds me of the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude like special shimmer formula in that palette. This reminds me of like the shade Delilah in there. It's very similar texture, and so if you were curious about that, this is a good $2 way to try out that formula and see if you like it. And then lastly, we're ending with another wet rock shade. This is the shade Rock Biter, and it is really pretty, very vampy, again, kind of like plummy red base with a strong blue metallic kind of shine on top. Again, running through this full set, we've got Roma, Asteroid, Toil, Calicore, Honeycomb, Zabornak, EA, Noel, Nightingale, Gina, Moby, and Rockbiter. This set of swatches has some really beautiful shades within it. We're getting close to the end of swatches, and we're starting off the second to last row with one that again is considered a highlighter. This is the shade Planetary, and you can see this one's definitely more of a satiny finish with a purple plumish kind of base and a very strong teal shift on top. But again, very satiny. Next to that, we have a really pretty deep purple, like a grayish kind of purple with a bluey green kind of sheen on top. This one, though, more of that traditional shimmer kind of formula. This is the shade Moonchild, and I really like this color combo on this one. Next, we have Regina's most recent collab shade, and though I am not a blue eyeshadow person, this might be my favorite blue eyeshadow, like true blue eyeshadow that I own. This is the shade Monet, and this is that newer, really sparkly, just gorgeous finish from Pretties for Your Face in this true kind of cool blue shade with a little bit of silver within it, and it is so, so pretty. Again, for $2, I cannot believe that we can get something this good. All right, pray for me for a moment because we've got another one of these black shades, which again stains very badly. This is the shade Glitch, and it's similar to Brocade, but of course this one has a blue sparkle on top rather than the green, and this one doesn't really shift. It kind of shifts a little bit purple, but it is very hard to see with that dark base. This next shade always makes me think of Zamil or Cosmetic Knot on Instagram. Again, I will link all of these beautiful people down below, but I know that she really loves this multi-chrome, and with good reason. This is one of the mega chromes. It's got a bright, bright blue base with an orangey pink to gold shift, and then it also goes green. I don't know if I can capture that, but it does, and I promise it does. It is so beautiful. It's one of those like true rainbow in a shadow kind of shades, and this is one that doesn't really have a multicolored sparkle in it, but more so focuses on like that true multi-chrome nature. This next one is really interesting. It again has more of like a satiny, sheeny kind of finish to it. This is the shade A Frog Amongst Fairies, and it's got like a sheerish base, like a kind of bluey gray with this gorgeous green to purple sheeny shimmer on top. Again, am I going to be able to capture it? Probably not. I'm terrible at capturing shifts, but it is a really interesting and pretty shade. The next one is an Enchantment, and this was created by Kayla on Instagram. I don't think she really posts anymore, but she is a great Swatch account, so I'll be sure to link her down below still. And this one has a kind of like, I don't know, almost like tealy blue base to me with a pink to gold shift. I'm hoping you can see it there. This is one of those $10 shades, which during the sale, plus an affiliate code, you can get for $4. And for $4, this is like duping a lot of way more expensive shades. So I really do like that one. Now we've got a blue leaning on purple. This one kind of right in between. This is the shade Sweetness, and this plus the shade True Love plus a little bit more purple equals my other collab shade, which we will get to pretty shortly. This one again has like a kind of periwinkle, but like gray periwinkle base with a silver sheeny sparkle on top. Again, one of those true kind of shimmer formulas from them. This next one is a little bit more true lavender, and this is the shade Moonlight Magic, but again has that kind of silvery, sheeny shimmer on top. You can see they're similar, but definitely not the same color. This one, way more true purple. This next one is a very flaky shade. This is Cosmos, and this is one that I don't like. This has that type of texture that I find very, very gritty, even though the end result is like a really pretty, ethereal kind of like light purple and gold sparkle. I just don't love the texture. However, this is my favorite one of the Mega Chromes, and maybe one of my favorite shadows from Pretties for Your Face, or even just in general. This is called Mythical, and it is so beautiful. So it's a very pale purple that then shifts to kind of like a tealy kind of color. I think you can see it right there. But within this color exists every color of shimmer that you could ever imagine. I see a indigo, like kind of blue, a teal blue, green, purple, orange, gold, silver, really truly everything. And it is so, so pretty. And if you can get this for $9 and during a sale, I highly, highly recommend. A long, long time ago, I put up a poll on my Instagram because I think that this shade is very similar to Terra Moon's Ultraviolet and its kind of premise, but it definitely is a little less like true purple than Ultraviolet. This one has a little bit more of a light purple base, but I put up a poll asking like which of the two shades you preferred, and I didn't use their names, and pretty overwhelmingly, you all picked Mythical from Pretties for Your Face. And Ultraviolet from Terra Moons. One, I don't support Terra Moons right now. But two, that shade is $18 and it very rarely gets discounted. And if it does, it'll get discounted maybe 20%. But this shade goes down to $9. So I'm just saying Mythical is where it's at. Highly recommend. Okay, last up for this row, this is a shade that recently took a tumble and shattered. I tried my best to repress it, but if you're wondering why it looks a little rough in the pan, that is why. This is from that summer collection of last year. This is the shade Vega, and this one's really interesting. It's got a purple base, but almost looks like a little bit grayish in the base as well. And then it's got a blue and pink sparkle within it. A very interesting shade, not my favorite, but I do really like this one, and I think you can see how it shifts a little pinky on the edge. So running through everything in this set of swatches, we've got Planetary, Moonchild, Monet, Glitch, Water Nymph, A Frog Amongst Fairies, Enchantment, Sweetness, Moonlight Magic, Cosmos, Mythical, and Vega. Again, still have a little bit of staining from that black shade. It's a doozy, but we're gonna keep chugging along. I can't believe we're finally at the last row, so let's get into it. First up, we have the shade Solstice, This is an OG shade. I have had it since the beginning and I really, really like it. This was my favorite amongst my first order and it remains a favorite today. It's got a pretty true purple base with a blue sheeny sparkle on top. It's in that more traditional shimmer finish from them, but it is just really, really pretty and like a true duochrome. This next one is another Mega Chrome. I don't feel like this one shifts a ton, but it does have that really gorgeous multicolored sparkle throughout it. This is the shade Windigo, and you can see it kind of goes like a little bit more pinky, but not a ton of shift on this one for me personally. It also can go a little bit gold, but it's pretty rare for me to see that. However, the sparkles in it are really pretty. I see a ton of orange, pink, like kind of indigo blue and purple sparkles in this one. And it's got a pretty deep, like violet indigo-y kind of base, which is where I assume the name comes from. I like this one, not my favorite one of the multi-chromes though. Then this shade is from the winter collection of 2023. This is Arctic Blast, and this one is really pretty. This is more of that like new kind of textured, flaky, sparkly formula, but in a kind of similar color story to Solstice. Although you can see this one is much more true blue, whereas Solstice looks a little bit more like blue silver. But hopefully you can see it also kind of shifts a little pink as well. Really pretty. I really like that one as a duochrome. Again, for $2, can't go wrong. This next one is another Mega Chrome. This is the shade Entrancing. And if you've been here for a long time, you will know that I used to love the shade Shattered Stars from Terra Moons. It was my favorite eyeshadow for a really long time. And this is basically the Pretties for Your Face version of that shade. So it's a little bit darker in the base. You can see it's kind of like a muted plummy purple kind of shade. And then you can see it's got a gold to green to tealy blue shift in it. I can't quite get the most extreme colors that it shifts to. This is one of those mega chromes that is more so focused on being a multi-chrome rather than having a bunch of different colored sparkles in it. Next to that is my other collab shade. This is Bamf, and it's a true kind of lilac purple to me. It's a little bit more warm than what I would consider a lavender. And this one has a pink to gold shift. It's pretty subtle, but I'm hoping that you can kind of see it on the edges there. And I really love this. I'm a huge purple eyeshadow person. And for me, this is like the perfect just purple for my skin tone. This next shade is Violet Vision, and this is one that I don't love. I find it to be pretty dusty and there's not a whole lot of shine coming from it. So to me, it's just not really worth writing home about. But if you like something very subtle, you might like this one, but I would say for most people, probably a good one to avoid. In comparison, Lilac Haze is kind of the better version of Violet Visions, in my opinion. Neither are my favorite, but I do feel like this one has a more pronounced gold to it, although the base is paler, and so I could see this one looking ashy on some folks. This next one I think is really pretty though. I think this is another one that's technically a highlighter. It's called Holiday, and it's just a very pale, like pinky purple kind of shade with a little bit of silver. Again, not the most striking, but a really good one for an inner corner. However, I like this next one even more. This is Faerie Frost. This one's a little bit more purple and blue, but again, very, very light. So that base color might not work for everyone, but I really like that sheeny kind of silvery blue finish on top. Speaking of a sheeny blue, this is another cult classic and one that I've had since the very beginning. This is Light as a Feather, and it has a very pale, like warm pink base with a strong bluey teal shimmer. But this is like not a shimmer. I shouldn't say that. This is like a pearlescent kind of sheeny shade. This one I also think is sold as a highlighter, but I really love this on the inner corner. It works so well. This next one is another one of my all-time favorites from the brand. This is from that amazing Halloween collection they did last year. This is the shade Incantation. And it is a pink, but you can see in the base, it's not quite as strong of a pink as it looks like it might be in the pan, but what makes this shade amazing is the sparkle. So it's got that blue to pink, which I think you can see, and it is one of those shades that just is Sparkle City. Totally worth the price, especially on sale. Just so, so good. This next one is Arcturus, and this is another one from that summer collection last year. This one's a touch grittier feeling, but it does smooth out. And this is kind of like a berry pink base with a blue and purple sparkle throughout it. Then last but certainly not least, we are ending with one last mega chrome. This is the shade Good Day, Sir, from the recent Willy Wonka collection. This one has a very, very deep kind of green base with a ton of sparkles. This is one that is both very shifty. You can see it shifting from that red to orange, and then it goes gold and green as well. Not sure if I'm going to be able to show that, but I promise it does. But along with that, it also has a multicolored sparkle throughout. So I am seeing green, pink, purple, red, blue, orange, all in the sparkle throughout. Woof! And with that, we are done with the last set of swatches from my full Pretties for Your Face collection. And just to run through the names again, we have Solstice, Wendigo, Arctic Blast, Entrancing, Banff, Violet Vision, Lilac Haze, Holiday, Faerie Frost, Light as a Feather, Incantation, Arcturus, and Good Day, Sir. So really quick before we get into shipping and general info, I wanted to do some non-Pretties for Your Face comparisons to my two collab shades. First up is Banff, and this shade may make you think of a certain acronym, but the acronym that it's actually named after are my 4 cats' names. So Bones is my oldest cat. I love him so much. He is the oppo to my Aang. We are like soul bonded. I've had him for almost a decade. And then Ash passed away in 2021. If you were around back then, you may remember when that happened. We still love him and consider him a part of the family, and he's always in our hearts. So, of course, he is a part of the acronym. And then Maybe is our youngest cat, and she is sweet and feisty and fun. And then we have Fry, who is our big scaredy guy. He is so sweet and loving. He's an instant purrer, but he is definitely a typical scaredy cat. My husband and I view our cats as our children, and we spoil them rotten, and we love them so much. And so because they are so special to me, I definitely wanted to include them in some way in this collab. And so having an acronym for all of their names just felt like the perfect name for my favorite color and my favorite sweet kitties. Also, I like the double meaning of Banff as an onomatopoeia in comic books. If you don't know, I was a middle school English teacher, and I used to love teaching graphic novels, and we would do onomatopoeias and we would cover Banff, and so it felt full circle to have that component in the name as well. For comparisons, I wanted to compare it to Terra Moon's Ultraviolet because this is like a very true purple, sparkly kind of shade, and I think on like from straight up, they do have something in common. The base colors are pretty similar. That purple with the pink is kind of similar, although the pink is stronger in Ultraviolet. Obviously, Ultraviolet is a multi-chrome, so they're not the same in that regard, but just for color reference, I was hoping that this could be a good comparison for you all. I also have JD Glow Lavender, which is just a really true lavender kind of metallic shade, and again, just for color reference, I wanted to have this so you could compare how cool this base is compared to the warmer pink in Banff. I also wanted to compare Cleona Glazed because this also has a pink to gold, but this one is more of a straight up duochrome kind of shade, whereas Banff just has that kind of multicolored sparkle within it. You can see that the Cleona shade shifts much stronger, and the base color is a lot cooler in the Cleona shade. And then lastly, we have Sydney Grace, Dear Reader, which color-wise, I feel like is pretty close. It's definitely a warmer purple compared to the rest, but it is a lot deeper, and the finish is not the same as Banff. Roma is, like I said, in just the overall swatches, like kind of a beigey nude kind of base color, mid-toned, and then it's got a silvery blue to pink shift. Again, not sure if I can quite show that intense shift, but it is there. This shade has multiple meanings as well. Firstly, Roma is the Italian word for Rome, which is the capital of Italy. And for those that don't know, I lived in Italy for a little bit and taught there, and I didn't teach in Rome. I taught outside of Milan in a little town, and so I just thought, overall, love Italy. I'm going back this year for the first time since I taught there, and I'm really, really excited about it. I'm going to go visit all of the people I worked with and lived with. So I'm very excited. It's a country that holds a special place in my heart, and so I thought that was a good name. And then it's also an anagram for an even more special reason. Really, though, it's just a name that has a lot of meaning for me personally, but hopefully it's got some broader appeal as well. The shades that I wanted to compare it to, firstly, I want to compare it to Looksy Snickerdoodle, which I think is the most similar, although Snickerdoodle leans a little bit more teal and a little bit warmer in that base color, or maybe it's just deeper. They're not exactly the same color in the base, and you can definitely see the difference in those colors on top. The shift in Roma definitely has a lot more silver to it, whereas Snickerdoodle is more of like that true teal. I actually think that the colors on top are more similar to Divina Mystic Moon Pie. This definitely has a way deeper base, but I'm not sure if you can see that the shimmer in Mystic Moon Pie is much more silvery. It still has like that blue to pink shift, it's just more muted, and I feel like that is more in tune with Roma. And then the last shade that I wanted to share is Looksy Chocolate Cherry, just because it has like a silvery blue kind of shimmer as well, which I think is pretty similar to Roma. But of course, the base color on that one is pretty different from Roma. It's a lot cooler. Hopefully those comparisons are helpful for you to decide if you are interested in these two shades, if they're too similar to other things you may own. Just some general information. These are both available on the site now, and I would recommend waiting till a sale so that way you can get each of these for $2, which obviously I'm biased, but I think is a pretty good deal for these two. And if you do get them, please tag me on Instagram or comment down below and let me know your thoughts. I'm really excited for you guys to try these out and to hear what you think, good or bad. Now, with that little bit of in-depth information out of the way, I wanted to go ahead and give you all some general overview. Like I said, formula-wise, all of these, with some few exceptions, mainly Storybook, which I think might have just been a formula issue, these tend to be on the drier, more cornstarchy side. I think you could see that in the swatches. They just pick up a little dry, a little flaky, but they blend out really well. And if you are someone who does not like the texture of something like Looksy, or what was the Looksy texture, and that more like squishy kind of dimethicone feel, Pretties for your face may be a good alternative for you, especially if you have like oily eyelids. I also think that Meg does a really good job with customer service. These shadows are definitely, because they're so soft and cornstarchy, they can be pretty fragile. I have had some break, and so if you ever have issues with that, feel free to reach out, and I feel like she's really good about handling issues like that. Shipping across the board is $6. Not the worst, not the best, but not too bad. And keep in mind that Pretties for Your Face is based in the US, as am I, and so shipping may be more expensive, probably will be more expensive if you are not in the United States. Like I mentioned, Pretties for Your Face does a sale about every month, I would say, if not every other month. So definitely hold out for a sale. Like, there is no reason to pay full price because another sale is just around the corner. So if any of these spoke to you and like you're thinking about making a purchase, just keep your eye out and make sure to purchase during a sale. Also, be sure to use an affiliate code. Some of my friends that I've mentioned today also have affiliate codes. Mine is Catherine B. Feel free to use whoever's affiliate code you want. It does not matter, but make sure that you use someone so that way you get an additional 20% off and take shadows from like $5 to $4 or $2.50 to $2. Definitely worth saving that extra bit of money. Pretties for Your Face also has a ton of other products. I've touched on some of those in the past when I made my first Pretties for Your Face purchase a long time ago, maybe like 2021 or 2020, somewhere around there. I have kind of stayed away mostly from the Bath and Body products, although I did recently get a sample of the lip scrub with my most recent order, and during the next sale, I definitely am going to pick up a lip scrub. I've always been a big fan of the Lush lip scrub. That's the one I've always used. And the Pretties for Your Face one has a very similar texture, in my opinion, and it is $6 compared to, I think Lush might be like $10 now. So, especially with sales, definitely a better deal. The biggest con about Pretties for Your Face is it is definitely a very indie brand. You can tell that in the way that the shadows are filled. Sometimes they're not like the most even filling. But the biggest way that you can tell that is with the time from order to delivery. I find that it takes about 4 to 6 weeks typically for my orders to come because I always order during a sale. If you order outside of a sale, it might get to you faster. I really can't speak to that. But if you do order during a sale, expect it to take 4 to 6 weeks for your package to be delivered. And the last piece of information I want to leave you with are some of my top recommendations. Now, keep in mind, these are off the top of my head, and so there are probably some that I'm going to be missing. But of course, again, I'm biased, but I do think that these are both really beautiful shades. So I'm going to recommend Roma and Banff. And Baby Doll and Incantation definitely both are going to make the list. These are just such beautiful and sparkly shades. Oh my gosh. You will notice a lot of my favorites that I recommend are very, very sparkly. And on that note, I'm going to throw in Horizon and Antares for sure. And definitely Ether, which I'll go ahead and grab now. These three in my head are just very similar in formula and like the type of sparkle that they have. And all of them just live rent-free in my head at all times. Thinking about iridescence, I really, really like Cauldron, which again, not a true iridescent, but pretty iridescent. Of course, Icicle. I also do really like True Love and Starry Night, but Icicle is my favorite for sure out of all of the iridescents. Some that are a little less textured and sparkly, but really duochromatic are Solstice and Cobweb. So here's Solstice again. And here's Cobweb, both very pretty traditional shimmers, but have like a really nice shift to them. For the more standard shimmers, there are a lot of really good options, but honestly, I feel like Honeycomb and Zabornak are two of my favorites. Really, really nice, just everyday kind of shades for me. And then lastly, I would say my favorites of the Megachromes are definitely Mythical and probably Pumpkin Pixie. I just love that both of these do have a shift, but that multicolored sparkle in both of them is just so freaking special and really makes these so, so unique to me. Yeah, I would say that these are some of my top recommendations off the top of my head. If you have any favorites from Pretties for Your Face, please let us know down below. Also, let us know if there are any that we should avoid that aren't so good. I definitely have some that, as we swatched, I feel like I pointed out, like Slimer. Not my favorite personally, not one that I would recommend purchasing. If you have ones like that, let us know down below and just let us know your overall thoughts. I really have missed you guys. I've missed filming. I'm so glad to have eaten the frog and gotten this big giant video out of the way because I've kind of been dreading it. It just feels like such a big task. So if you did like this and find this helpful, please like this video, subscribe if you want more indie eyeshadow content as well as just general makeup content. And until I see you next time, I hope that you stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy. Bye!